Within the rolling hills of New York's Finger Lakes region lies a gem of a racing circuit, Watkins Glen International. Today, the Pirelli GT4 America Championship roars into the stretch run of the season, and the series return to upstate New York for round 9 of the 14-race calendar. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. Amanda Busick is in the pit lane. It is a pleasure to have your company. Clouds have rolled in, but no threat of rain, with 60 minutes of racing coming your way shortly. Calvin, with the championship very much up for grabs across 3 classes in Pirelli GT4 America, we've got a totally mixed up grid because this morning qualifying for this race was wild.
It was a surprise when we got to the circuit to see the track wet, and these guys were the first up, and a couple of cars got caught out, one significant one being James Walker Jr., and that caused a red flag and has effectively ended the session. So only 3 laps on the board was the most we saw, and some surprise visitors to pole positions. And some of the championship contenders way back, and also one of the championship contenders not even here today.
That's right, and that will be a story to chronicle as we get deeper into the broadcast. We'll touch on those stories and a whole lot more in just a moment, but first, the Porsche track preview.
Hi, my name is Jan Helen. Welcome to the Porsche track preview here at Watkins Glen. Coming onto the front straightaway, crossing start-finish, getting ready to brake downhill into turn 1, deep on the brakes, hitting that apex, and then watch for track limits here on the exit of turn 1. Getting ready to turn into the famous S's here at Watkins Glen. Really fun part of the track in this Porsche GT3R. Going up the hill, no lift here, onto the back straightaway, and then getting ready to brake into the bus stop. Deep on the brakes here, close to the 150 signboard, and then hard over the curbs here, into the bus stop, and then back to power into the carousel. Carousel, one of the faster corners on the track. Hard in, small tap on the brake, and then quickly back to power. So much downforce here from the car, really fun. Deep on the brakes here into turn 6, lots of camber here from the track. Back to power, using up all that exit, and then same for turn 7. Lots of camber here from the track, so you can really drive it in deep. And then accelerating up the hill, ready to get onto this little back stretch into turn 8. Turn 8, one of the best places to overtake. If you're in a hot battle, braking down the hill again, apexing the corner, and then watch for track limits here on the exit, and then braking up the hill for turn 9, turn 9 being the slowest corner on the track, and you'll see not much room for error here on the exit, right next to that wall, and then into turn 10, which is the fastest corner on the track, over 100 miles an hour, using all that exit curb, pushing the car back over to the left, ready for turn 11, last corner, small tap on the brake, and then exiting right next to that wall onto the front straightaway, and that was a lap at Watkins Glen.
An amazing circuit with a rich history, Watkins Glen International. Thanks to Jan Halen for that tour of the track. We'll see him in action in the GT World Challenge America race later on this afternoon. But first, it's Pirelli GT4 America, and on the overall pole, it's the AM-Class car from Capstone Motorsports. Chris Wilson piloted that car. His co-driver is on the grid with Amanda.
Well, we're going to be joined by John. He's still making his way down here, but a little update on this car. John actually did wreck in his qualifying effort. They have replaced the front bumper, the splitter, the radiator to get this car ready for this race. It almost missed pre-grid by 1 minute. If that would have happened, guys, this pole leading car would have started from the back. So in anticipation of starting from the pole, John Allen has decided that he is going to shave his beard today, guys, right after this race. It's all for charity for Nick Saban's Nick Kids. We know that John's a big University of Alabama fan, and that is what this pole position means to them.
Well, that is a big decision from John. He's been sporting that beard for some time now, and it's taken some dedication to grow it to the length it has grown out to. So goes to show just what the pole means to that team. And it was a shaken up qualifying, Calvin, so to have that car miss the pre-grid, that almost would have been apropos with what we saw this morning. not many laps turned and several big-time contenders mired deep in this field.
There are, but certainly some of the favorites up front as well. Kenny Murillo, a nice job from Murillo Racing, getting that Mercedes AMG on the silver pole. He'll start outside of Chris Wilson there on the front row. So they're on a roll. They got a really strong combination of drivers. They've had 4 wins this season, and coming off a Road America weekend where they had a win and a runner-up finish.
Very strong for them. The points leaders in Pro-Am, Matt Travis and Jason Hart, they will not be taking part in the race today, Calvin. Matt Travis has wedding officiant duties. His sister is getting married today. He took part in practice yesterday, then left the track. He'll be back sometime around 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, ready to go for race 2. Now, the good news is they have built a sizable lead in the Pro-Am Championship. There is John Allen in that beard, by the way. But back to the NOLA Sports story, Matt Travis and Jason Hart, they will not race today, which means that lead will evaporate. The big question is, to what extent?
Yeah, 63-point lead, so there's 25 points on the table here today. So it's all about how far up this field can Gregory Leafouge and Sean Quinlan get. They're starting deep in the pack, but they obviously identify this is a prime opportunity to eat into that championship lead.
I will keep an eye on those points battles. 3 different classes, Silver, Pro-Am, and Am, all mixed together, all in GT4 cars. And as Chris Wilson demonstrated in qualifying, taking the overall pole in an Am class car that you would think would be the lowest of the 3 classes, because the cars are all the same, it can get really mixed up. And the battles that you have to pick and choose, who to fight, when to fight, especially in out-of-class combat, that's one of the crucial elements to Pirelli GT4 America.
It is recognizing the big picture, not getting the red mist and getting too feisty with someone that you don't need to be fighting. But certainly for Chris Wilson, he's going to want to try and jump out to the lead here, really put the hammer down. And with this pit stop window that happens between the 25 and 35-minute mark of this race, you expect when you got the faster driver starting, he's going to try and extend that run as deep into the race as he can. So we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out today.
The race format, 60 minutes. There is a mandatory pit stop halfway through within a 10-minute window. It has to be done within that prescribed time. And during that pit stop, there are no tire changes. There is no refueling. It is just the driver swap, which means that driver 1 has to make sure there's something left in those Pirelli P0s when driver 2 takes over.
Yeah, super important that you don't basically leave your co-driver with nothing left to defend with. So perfectly dry track. We talked about the wet qualifying session and the damp track that was drying out for the subsequent qualifying sessions for the other classes here today. But this is ideal. A little bit of cloud cover. And the grip level here at Watkins Glen International is absolutely insane. The rolling speed, we can see that with Jan Halen aboard that GT3 Porsche. Just incredible how much speed you can commit to around this circuit. And with these conditions, this will be a good one, a really quick race.
11 turns, 3.37 miles around Watkins Glen. We saw the onboard lap in the GT3 car. How similar would it look inside of a GT4 car with a little less downforce, less sophisticated traction control and ABS?
Well, not quite the speeds in terms of the approach speeds and not quite as much rolling speed through the corners because the GT3 cars do have a ton more downforce, but these are really potent cars. You can see the aerodynamic styling on all of the different manufacturers that we have on the grid here today. They do develop significant downforce with these GT4 cars. However, the nice thing is there's not so much downforce that if you're following a car closely, you're losing as much. So the delta is less, meaning you can have really good close racing.
Few stories to keep an eye on. As mentioned in qualifying, the wet track caught out a number of teams and drivers that had some wall contact. The Forbush Performance Toyota was involved in one of those spins with some wall contact. Matt Forbush will start that car back in the 26th overall position. Also involved in an incident was James Walker Jr. and he and the Bimmer World team. They've got a lot of work ahead of them, starting 29th overall after bringing out the red flag in that session. Now the good news is James has been fast, his car was very strong, and they've got Bill Oberlin to take over halfway through the race.
Yeah, well, you know Bill, he's going to want to try and get to the front if he can. So a lot of work to do. It needs a really good opening stint here from James Walker. Not leave Bill too much to try and make up, but ideally they're going to need a yellow, try and close the pack, make some ground, gain some track position, get a yellow, get a reset, and who knows what may happen. Bill has obviously had so much success over the years here at Watkins Glen, including winning the GLEN 6 out here just a couple of months ago.
Another neat story is the debut of a new team, 3R Povolato Racing. Ross Schwest and Aaron Povolato, the drivers in that car, they will start in the 13th spot. They've been driving all season with the Rentec team. Had the big crash in the GT America race at Road America. They used the same chassis for both championships. And as a consequence, they've been forced to a backup plan. This is an Aston Martin chassis that the team is employing that Ross already owned and had an eye on competing with next season. But they pressed it into service early, got a lot of help from Susan and Cy Jerry, the North American distributors from Aston Martin, and an extra assist from the Dexter Racing team, which is really going out of its way to help them get up to speed.
Well, that's a big help because you can get the setups from the Dexter Racing team that have been very competitive this year. So that's a nice alliance there. We'll be curious to see how they can do. Obviously, after a pretty decent start so far this weekend on the debut with the Aston Martin.
The chassis only arrived at the Dexter shop in Nebraska last Sunday. Not much time to prep that car and then get it sent out here to Watkins Glen. But they've got some experience on that team. The 3R is a team that should be familiar to long-time fans of the championship. They were involved with K-Pax back in the day with the Volvo touring car program. I think that's the connection to Aaron, who's part of the driving group and also helping to manage this new team. And then also they were involved in K-Pax's Porsche era with Randy Pobst and others. So a lot of experience there. Dax Robb, part of that operation. They brought in some names that are familiar around the paddock to help with engineering. And that could be a team to watch, even though they're making their debut. Plus, the Aston has proven to be so solid, seemingly everywhere we go.
It is. I think it's a great fit for this GT4 platform. So many of the AM drivers especially just find it a really comfortable car to drive, easier to drive on the limit, let's put it that way. So not quite as edgy, and as we saw last year, just tremendous success in the hands of a number of drivers and teams.
The field on the second of 2 formation laps. It gives us a chance to take a look at the circuit map. Calvin, talk us through this Watkins Glen layout.
Well, it's certainly very challenging. It does have quite a bit of elevation change. It's renowned for being super smooth and remains that way despite the harsh winters up here. But the amount of grip, when they did the resurfacing a handful of years ago, it just transformed the place in terms of the commitment speed that you could have through some of these corners. You see Sector 1 there up through the S's, pretty much flat out, so that's all about horsepower and low drag. But that Sector 2 can be the differentiator between the cars and the drives in terms of who can get through that much twistier section most effectively.
Here comes the field now behind the Lamborghini Urus safety car, starting to come into 2x2 alignment. Again, it is Chris Wilson on the overall pole. Capstone Motorsports, that Mercedes with Big Al, and the University of Alabama Engineering School well represented on that machine. He'll have Kenny Murillo starting alongside in the orange Murillo racing car. Then in the second row, Stephen McAleer, who's teaming with Toby Verhoeven once again in the Silver Cup entry, starting third. Adam Addison, very impressive in qualifying, starts fourth for Premier Racing. And he'll have Elliott Skier with him. Elliott had a great qualifying effort for race 2, so that Porsche could be one to keep an eye on in the race. Tom Capizzi starred along with John Capestro Dubets back at Road America. The last time out, he'll start in the 5th spot. Paul Terry, new co-driver alongside, and Owen Trinkler here this weekend for WR Racing. They will start 6th. It's a great field of cars, plenty of storylines up and down this grid, and we're about to turn them loose.
Yeah, and as you talk your way through the grid there, Ryan, just so many great stories, even though we're past the halfway point in this season. So JCD and Capizzi there coming off 2 runner-up finishes at Road America. Can they go one better this weekend there in the 52 machine?
It's the goal, but it's Mercedes AMG power on the front row. Chris Wilson in the white machine. Kenny Murillo in the orange coming through turn 11. The safety car has accelerated away. And we're looking for the green flag now. Down the front straightaway we come. 31 cars set to go. Green flag waves, and look at the jump from the second row from Stephen McAleer.
Wow, Chris Wilson brought them to the line relatively slowly and allowed McAleer to get a bit of a gap there between the Mercedes, and he looked like he timed that nicely. Didn't jump out early and didn't pass before the stripe. That was a nice run there.
A lot of talk about turn one, lap one in the drivers' meeting yesterday. They get through it cleanly. McAleer is sprinted out to the lead, but Kenny Murillo scything past Chris Wilson. He takes over the second spot.
Yeah, he got his elbows out there. I don't think there was a touch, but certainly very aggressive move. Wilson comes back at him down this long stretch here, down towards the inner loop.
And just behind, Tom Capizzi taking a look as well in the BMW. Then it's Adam Adelson just behind in the Porsche. A bit wide there through the inner loop, able to wrangle it back online, putting the pressure on the 52 machine.
Adelson really rolling some speed there on this opening lap before the tires are really up to their peak temperatures and pressures right now.
Mackay Stevens taking a peek there in that Conquest Racing silver Mercedes. Looked to the inside of the McLaren just ahead. Had a great qualifying effort in just his second weekend racing GT4 cars. And started in 9th, already up to 7th and trying to do one better.
Yeah, Michael McAleer right in front of him in that McLaren, but he is putting the pressure on here. Great to see that Conquest Racing team here on debut at Road America. Didn't have a ton of time, but they just made gradual progress through the weekend and ended up on the podium there by the end of the day.
Stephen McAleer starting to run away at the front of the field for Classic BMW. Chris Wilson isn't taking this lying down, though. He's back on the attack. It's an M-Class car chasing a Silver Class car. Silver running 1-2 with McAleer ahead of Murillo, and Murillo's got his hands full right now.
He does. He had to get a little bit defensive there up into the brake zone for turn 9. That's going to compromise his lap times, and this is not what Chris Wilson needs. If he has a faster race car, he needs to try and gap the competition as we see someone hit pit lane.
I think that might have been Mackay Stevens in the Conquest car. We'll keep an eye on that. Certainly Amanda will as well, as Capizzi goes on the offensive. He's looking to the outside of Wilson, who took a peek to the inside of Murillo. No change in position there. This is the 35 car. You see Farrow on the side. John Farrow is part of the ownership group there, and the penalty is being handed down. A drive-through, refueling on the pre-grid. That will be costly.
Oh, that's disappointing, because this is a really good driver combination with him. Young Colin Mullen, Team USA graduates, as this battle is not going anywhere, but it's allowed McAleer to really skip away at the front.
This is 2nd, 3rd, and 4th overall. Silver and Am and Pro-Am all racing together for the overall honors. We drop a little bit further, and Adelson has cleared McAleer, so that sets that Porsche loose. And now McAleer defending here. James Clay looking aggressive.
A familiar sight.
Yes.
James Clay looking aggressive. He's a great racer. He just gets his elbows out and is not afraid to make some bold and aggressive moves here.
Same could be said for Paul Terry, who's in that WR Racing Aston Martin just behind. He's known to go for any gap that exists, and had a great qualifying effort to start in the top 10, as did his fellow Aston runner, Gray Newell. We're looking at that car here. I believe that would be the first top 10 overall qualifying result from Gray, starting to round into form as the season gets closer to the checkered flag.
Yeah, I had a chat with his teammate Ian James yesterday, who runs that Heart of Racing operation. He said, Gray's really doing a nice job. We're very happy as you see this battle now for 2nd overall. This is for the AM lead, or the AM leaders, should I say, trying to make a move on Kenny Murillo. Murillo really wide. Drag limit certainly coming into play there, and Wilson skips around the outside. Can he make it stick now? He's wide and late on the power.
Ebb has to lift out of it. That opens the door for Murillo, and right on cue, here comes Tom Capizzi. He goes to the inside. It'll be 3 wide into the braking zone for turn 1. Wilson sweeps around the outside. Capizzi backs out of it. No position change, but here comes Murillo. He wants that spot back because his class leader is the overall leader, and Stephen McAleer is getting away.
I was wondering what Capizzi was going to do with that move, because you get down to the inside when there's 3 wide. Suddenly you could see that Chris Wilson car coming back to Apex with nowhere to go. So I think it was a wise move by Capizzi by bailing out of that.
On the defensive into the inner loop, Chris Wilson trying to keep Kenny Murillo at bay. Murillo right in the tire tracks, and it should be equal footing between these two Mercedes-AMG GT4 machines, and Tom Capizzi not going anywhere, showing the strength of that BMW M4 platform.
We had a nice chat with Kenny Murillo yesterday, and he was sharing with us right in the story behind the number of 72. It's actually his great-grandfather's bike racing number, so the racing heritage runs deep in that Murillo family.
That's right, it goes all the way back to the 1930s, and Kenny actually showed me some pictures from his great-grandfather Philip's racing days. Was a BMW factory rider in motorcycle competition pre-World War II. Here is McAleenan now in the McLaren. He's got James Clay to the inside, and right behind, that's Paul Terry watching for his chance to pounce.
He is, and it's taken James Clay basically a lap to try and cut and paste that same move. He was looking at that similar move just a lap ago, and finally he gets it done. See if he can demonstrate a little bit more pace now. He's clear for the McLaren.
Terry had to back out of it as McAleenan shut the door on him, and that brings Gray Newell into the picture. Meanwhile, Chris Wilson has built a bit of a gap. Most comfort he's had all race long, and Murillo going from aggressor to defender, trying to hold off Tom Capizzi.
I think settling down a little bit, but up front, I mean, it's allowed McAleenan to now create a 5-second plus gap to the rest of the field. Now you see Adelson making a move down at the inside on the run to turn 1 for 5th position.
It's been a great outing so far for that Premier Racing team. Adelson, Elliott Skier running together for the first time in Pirelli GT4 America last time out at Elkhart Lake, and they showed some pace there, but I don't think that was the best track to showcase the Porsche Cayman. Here at Watkins Glen, it seems like there's a bit more parity as far as the Cayman is concerned, and they should be a factor, especially when Elliott gets in. He is a real talent. We just haven't seen enough of him as of late. This is Charlie Belluardo, I think. This is the RS1 car that Charlie and Trent Hinman are sharing this weekend. It might be dropping some fluid. You can see the smoke trail coming out from behind that car.
Yeah, and I know the session was cut short, but it was a nice qualifying run by Belluardo, 5th position in class. And you know that when Trent Hinman gets behind the wheel of any car that he drives, he's going to be towards the sharp end. So hopefully it's not a bigger problem with that race car than we just saw.
One other story to chronicle, Cole Corallo and Tim Barber, they are 2nd in silver points, but they were one of those that were caught out going back to qualifying, and Tim has done a great job clawing his way forward from 28th. He is already up to 14th and 3rd in class, and he's got Kevin Conway in his sights next for 13th overall. A bit of work to do, though, if he's going to get up and join the rest of the silver class contenders that are a ways up the road, including 1st and 3rd in the overall running order with McAleer and Murillo. But Murillo right now can't rest easy, and that's one of those corners that track limits becomes a talking point here at Watkins Glen. 4 wheels over the painted lines, and that's where the stewards are going to start taking a close look at things.
Yeah, they are, and basically got some part of that Pirelli P0 inside wheel touching. Now Capizzi gets a better run and just clears him in time to inch across and take the line away towards apex. So it's taken him a while, but just really good discipline to get that move done.
Tom rounding into form, it seems like also. He was incredibly impressive in his stints at Road America, and I think it's worth noting that the BMW seemed to be the car to have there, but it's carried over to Watkins Glen, and the run of form from him and Auto Technic, Jean-Baptiste, very impressive. As, they are the pace setters for BMW at the moment.
Well, sometimes you just find a setup that just clicks, and Road America and here are not that dissimilar in terms of their makeup, in terms of high-speed corners and similar sort of setups, even though this is a little bit smoother. But, you know, and also confidence is such a big factor. They had such a great race weekend and could have come away with at least 1 victory, but 2 runner-up finishes. They want to go better here, as we said earlier in the show, and they're certainly demonstrating that. And with John Capestro Dubet's going to take over the reins of that Auto Technique BMW, expect him to take it to the front.
We see Sean Quinlan entering into the picture for the first time. That is the BMW at the back of the shot. Gray Newell taking a peek to the inside of Adam Adelson and has to back out of it. But Quinlan and Greg Leafouge, they're in the midst of a championship hunt of their own. Did not qualify well. Started 17th in this race, but up into the top 10 overall now. And looking to pounce a little bit more as Adelson gives up a spot. Gray Newell makes the pass around the outside stick, and Quinlan trying to follow him through.
That was really nice driving there by Gray. He got the move to the outside. It's not the ideal lane. You would think that Porsche may have come back at him, but he gave him plenty of racing room, rolled the speed around the outside and makes that move stick. So talking to Ian James at the beginning of the year about Gray Newell and his abilities, he said he's had a lot of pace, been really impressed with him in testing, but now sticking him in race conditions is going to be the real litmus test, and he really showcased there that he's learned a lot quickly.
Well, it's true a bit more on the Quinlan, Leafouge, Stephen Cameron racing story. They know they're going to make up points this race because the car they're chasing isn't running today. It will run tomorrow. That's the Matt Travis, Jason Hart car. It's just a matter of how much ground they could make up, and this strong start here in this stint from Sean Quinlan is exactly what they were hoping for.
I think Adelson must have a problem because he's losing places rapidly right now after a really impressive start. So if the tires have peaked a little bit, moved up to adjust with their starting pressures, or if he's got something technically going on, because you can see him now dropping like a stone.
That's a shame. That's an extra racing car sweeping by. Ryan Dexter in his first trip to Watkins Glen driving. He'll turn it over to his brother Warren. Father Zane is the team principal based out of Nebraska. They started Spec Miata racing, then went Trans Am racing before showing up and doing a partial GT4 schedule a few years ago with a Ginetta. This is the first year in the Aston Martin camp, and they've had some really good runs, especially in the season opener at Sonoma.
Yeah, really impressive little team, and I mean that in the best possible way. They just really learning their trade really quickly here in SRO competition, despite making the move to a different chassis, showing similar performance levels.
Entered this weekend, tied for third in silver class points. But a nice strong move forward so far in this stint. Ryan Dexter up to 14th overall. This is Sean Quinlan, who we were talking about a moment ago. He's got the former NASCAR Cup Series Rookie of the Year, Kevin Conway, breathing down his neck. That's the AM class car just behind the Supra. While we watch them battle it out on track, let's go to the pit lane and check in with Amanda.
Well, you talk about the moves that Sean Quinlan and Gregory Leafuge want to make today. Well, that #1 car that you were talking about and the points of Matt Travis and that team, well, they're not racing in this race currently today because Matt is actually officiating his sister's wedding. And with 5 wins on the season, I imagine that points lead might add a little bit to do with this decision, but what a special day for the Travis family.
Really cool for Matt. I know he was very excited about it. He was kind of joking around. Why do you have to schedule your wedding on a race weekend? Can't you schedule your life-changing events around my hobby? And it was all said with a tongue firmly planted in cheek. He's a funny guy, and that team has about as much fun as anybody in the paddock. In fact, their press release announcing that's what they were doing this weekend was about the funniest thing I've read in some time.
I can only imagine the one-liners at that wedding today.
Well, best of luck to Matt as he officiates that wedding this weekend. And we'll see him back at the racetrack tomorrow for race 2. But right now, the team is probably keeping a close eye on what Sean Quinlan is doing, so they'll have an idea of just what the damage is for missing the race here today. Kenny Murillo piloting the 72 for Murillo Racing. Christian Shimshak will take over. So we've reached nearly 15 minutes into this race, which means we're about 10 minutes away from that pit window opening. We can start taking a look at what the teams might elect to do from a strategy perspective.
Battle for 7th overall. It's not a battle for class between McAleenan and Gray Newell. Just moving his way forward. There was big fist pumps after qualifying where he qualified 4th in class, but this is really the ultimate test here is what can he do in race conditions, and so far today he is moving forward.
Michael McAleenan driving that McLaren Motorsport USA is the team, based out of the Pacific Northwest, as is Michael. He's from Tacoma, Washington. Finished 5th in GT4 America AM points last year. Running again in the AM class alongside Dan Rogers and trying to keep the Pro-Am car of Gray Newell behind him. And that McLaren looks stout in a straight line.
It does, and the Aston is known for being pretty strong. He made some moves on straightaway speed, Gray did, and got a good run through the final corner. And now we're seeing an issue here because this is not inside the pit stop window for the Capstone Racing AM leader. Chris Wilson now in pit lane.
This was the overall pole sitter. We saw Chris running at the pointy end of the field. Remember Amanda's update, they did have some contact in the qualifying session. You can see the bare carbon nose on this car. They had to make some repairs prior to the race. And maybe you wonder if there's something residual from that contact that is starting to rear its head now 15 minutes into the first race of the weekend.
Yeah, it's a great point, Ryan. When you take a hit like that, it can send kind of a shockwave through all of the ancillary equipment on that car. So that's disappointment there for that team.
BMW on BMW action here. 2nd in Pro-Am points, fighting 2nd in silver points. That's Tim Barber chasing Sean Quinlan. And here comes Tim taking a peek to the inside, but not up close enough as they enter the boot.
Yeah, and we talk about some of these AM drivers, how they've progressed. Quinlan coming off that 2019 championship Sprint X with Greg Leafuge, and he's just used to hitting winner's circle now, so it's given him a ton of confidence. And even though this is not a battle for class position, he didn't want to give up the position easily.
Just exited the toe of the boot, making the run to the heel. And now we jump ahead and watch McElhinney continuing to hold off Gray Newell, but yeah, those two BMWs, not much between them, just behind. And Barber knows he needs to charge because he's third in class, but the leader in class is leading overall. Second in class is third overall. They are fighting for that points championship. They're very much in the thick of things, but still an impressive drive coming from as far back as they have in today's race.
Here we see, as I said, like cut and paste, we saw some other people taking a lap to get the job done, and that's exactly what Gray Newell just did. Learned from the previous lap, timed it a little bit differently, and gets the run down to the inside on the McLaren down into turn 1.
But now we'll see what kind of power that McLaren has. We saw it able to defend with that horsepower down the front straightaway. If he can stay in the slipstream, he might have a chance to make a play into the braking zone for the inner loop, but it did look like Newell might have solidified that lead. Instead, it's Tim Barber taking a peek to the inside on the first jig to the right in the inner loop. Can't get the pass done, but stays right there in the tire tracks, and it's going to be threatening as they enter the boot portion of the circuit.
Yeah, and the entry speed to the inner loop is so quick with these GT4 cars. You've really got to have timed the move. Now he looks down to the inside at the laces. That's a nice move there. I think he caught Sean a little bit by surprise there, but trying to get the job done on the inner loop, you've really got to be moving alongside the car. It's not a corner where you're braking enough just to do a last-minute late brake into that corner. You're bleeding off the brake pedal pretty quickly and flying through there, rolling speed.
That move was for 8th overall, and keep in mind, Tim Barber started back in 28th to start this race, so up 20 spots in less than 20 minutes. Very impressive stuff for CCR Team TFB. Cole Corallo will take over. He's been impressive this season as well. Those two have been working together for a couple of years now, and Cole's another youngster that, with some experience under his belt, is looking to take the next step.
See Conway there running second in the AM class. Got a little bit of work to do to catch McElhinney, who leads in that number 5, that black McLaren that we were seeing in that battle with Gray Newell. So it's all about trying to get your teammate in a strong position for the second half of this race. You can see how close these cars coming off that final corner. The curb basically runs all the way up to that safety barrier there. So you can almost play a game of chicken through that corner in terms of how early you want to commit back to the power and ensuring that you've got enough room on the exit.
It started off as a promising day for Capstone Motorsports, but we saw the car in the pit lane off sequence. Amanda, what's the story?
It did start off as a fantastic day for this team, and as we were making our way down pit lane, we saw the team walking away, kind of shaking their head. They are out for the rest of the day. I'm with the engineer, Grant Barkley, who looks over the engineer and strategy. What can you tell us about what happened underneath the hood of the Mercedes?
Well, I can tell you it's a really devastating blow for the team. You may have noticed we had an accident in Quali 2. The crew worked incredibly hard. We made pre-grid literally with 1 minute to spare. And we've just had an alternator belt failure. So obviously losing all the power on the motor, the drives, everything in this car. We're not sure at the moment if it's related to the accident in Quali, but there's probably a good chance we may have picked up some debris then, and that led to the failure, unfortunately. I feel so bad for John and Chris, and especially for the crew that worked so hard to get us back on track. But tomorrow's another day, and hopefully we'll not have any bad luck tomorrow.
Thank you, Grant.
Tough break for Capstone. Tough break as well for the Dexter Racing car. Little off-track excursion. You see all the grass in the grill of that machine, but diffuser damage as well.
Yeah, just tried to look around the outside there and of Schwest and gets it a little bit wrong. Runs out wide. You see the diffuser come adrift, so that may still be on the racetrack. But he's also packed that front grille with grass as well, so he's got to really watch his temps right now.
And remember, those are two cars basically running out of the same tent this weekend. The Dexters went to bat for Schwest, and the 3R Povolito team in their first weekend on the racetrack, and that was a little tight between those two.
It was. There's a good little race going on there, but just lose it. We talk about these GT4 cars not having the same amount of downforce as GT3 cars, so it does allow you to follow closely, but he just washed out there. It's a high commitment corner there coming down the hill. May have just missed his marks a little bit. When you're following so closely, it's very easy to do that.
Well, let's give Ross Schwest a shout here too. He's running just at the back of this fight. He's in the Aston Martin, the white one, running right behind the Supra there. First weekend racing in this new Aston Martin platform, brand new team, a lot of new personnel. It was a thrash to get it together. Speaking to his co-driver, Aaron Povoleto, he said, we got to give tons of credit to Jack Baldwin, the class manager for GT4 America, as well as the Cy and Susan Jerry, the Aston Martin distributors. Everyone who could lent a hand to help make sure they were here. Dexter Racing as well. And he's given it a good ride. Qualified 13th, running just outside the top 10 right now in 11th.
And this is a great little dice we're seeing here. Conway Supra looks to be really handling super well, really able to carve these corners. You have to think he's got a little bit more lap time available to him if he can clear this traffic.
Really nice driving there from Quinlan to leave enough space on the outside. Conway makes his way to the flank of the BMW. This is not for class position. Conway driving an M-Class car. There in the heel of the boot, able to swing around the outside. Meanwhile, the Dexter Racing battle is not done yet. 3R Povoleto, Dexter Racing, sister team, side by side, coming back out into the run between 9 and 10.
Well, that little off has not deterred him anywhere. Anyways, Dexter there, and despite probably losing a little bit of rear downforce with that diffuser being missing, he's braving it around the outside and gets the job done. Then things are going one better immediately.
Nearly made it a 2 for 1. Quinlan holds him off and might have cut the momentum off a little bit. Let's see if Ross Schwest can come back. Just 2 minutes and change away from the pit window opening, but the fight on the track is a fierce one. Schwest deep on the brakes, catches a lot of curb at the apex, bounces wide, but he's got the spot back.
Awesome.
Ryan Dexter, though, on the comeback of his own. Takes a peek to the inside, and they'll be side by side through the S's. High commitment, high speed, part of the racetrack.
The underbody from that camera angle is literally dragging on the bottom of that second of the two Astons we're looking at right now on screen. I'm just curious what those temperatures are doing. Not an extremely warm weekend up here. Ambience in the mid-70s, so that may be aiding a little bit, but looks like some of the grass is gone. He's got pretty clear channel there to the very important radiators up front there.
Well, they had some issues in practice one that ended up with some overheating, and that really cut their track time down. I'm talking to Warren Dexter. He was telling me his brother Ryan has never been here before, and they were hoping to get him a lot of laps, and that just hasn't been the way it's played out. So he's learning every single lap, and they really credited the strength of that Aston package for dealing with the overheating issue that they had back in practice. They were afraid it might have done some damage to the engine, but everything seemed to be full systems go. We take a look here at the overall leader. Stephen McAleer has run away from this field. 9.5 seconds now, the gap between McAleer and Tom Capizzi in second.
Yeah, and looking at his fastest lap, he's done 156.7. There's only three other drivers now in the 157 range, so that is a dominant display. But he is still hustling really hard, and I'd have to think you got to factor in, as you said earlier, Ryan, about giving your co-driver some time to work with for the second half of this race.
Should also make mention of the fact that the misfortune for Capstone has promoted McAleen into the AM class lead, but it's now a fight there between McAleen and Conway, the Smooge Racing Supra. They now run effectively nose to tail in 9th and 10th, or that 8th and 9th overall. So we should have a fight for the AM class lead on our hands before too much longer. Here's Tom Capizzi, though, giving this BMW a nice run, but it's not copacetic in that car. He's got his hands full.
Yeah, arms and elbows there a little bit through the second part of the inner loop. So again, he may, the one thing you can't change tires, but you can adjust the tire pressures. So that's certainly something that the team can look at on this round of pit stops that we expect to be happening here pretty quickly. I think the leaders will maybe have the opportunity on this lap to nip in. I'm not sure. Yeah, McAleer's just 11 seconds up, so he won't be at pit entry yet. So I think the whole field will be able to make a stop on this very lap if they choose to do so and make the early call on strategy to pit.
James Clay giving a nice run to that Bimmer World car. He's got Nick Galante as his co-driver. Put in some good runs this year, at a podium in the first race of the weekend at Elkhart Lake. Had some bad luck, especially at Circuit of the Americas, that struck the whole Bimmer World team. And this is the sister car here with Chandler Hull driving, silver class entry. And John Miller tends to be a rocket ship when he gets in one of these BMWs. He'll be taken over at the first opportunity, I suspect.
Yeah, that was a wild day at Coda with all three Bimmer World cars being involved in that incident towards the tail end of the S's. We see a lot of the leaders peeling in. Rillo certainly with them. Capizzi is in.
And then the car in between is a lapped car. That's Dominic Starkweather in a NOLA Sport entry he's sharing this weekend.
Ackler stayed out, so he's demonstrating tremendous pace, so they may try and extend his run a little bit.
So time for the crucial driver changes now. Out comes Capizzi. John Capestro Dubets, who was a star at Road America, he's getting in the 52 car now. The pit lane minimum time for Pirelli GT4 America this weekend, 76 seconds. So that's from pit in to pit out. They must remain in the pit lane for that long. There's a little bit to play with the Joker, which we could talk about if that becomes applicable. Here's the Stephen Cameron car. They'll do their driver change. Sean Quinlan getting out, and he'll turn it over to Greg Leofouge. WR Racing also making their switch, and for the first time this season, replacing Paul Terry, it's Owen Trinkler rather than Brandon Davis, who's been with the team for the bulk of the year.
Yeah, Brian Putt making his pit stop here, and here's Spencer Pumpelly jumping on board the TRG entry. He actually has pole for tomorrow's race, so certainly a lot of potential speed with that Porsche.
Let's take a look at the pit stop times. Autotechnic able to beat Murillo Racing out.
Close pit stop was about a second outside the minimum, and Autotechnic about half a second up on that, so they only left 0.6 of a second on the table. By the Harded Racing team, just 1/10 outside of the minimum stop time. You do have a 1 second joker to play with each weekend. Use it once either day.
Was a great opening stint from Gray Newell, and now Ian James, the savvy veteran, gets behind the wheel. That Aston might be one to watch here in the second half of this race. Kevin Conway has handed it over to John Jesbray in the AM class points leading Smooge Racing Toyota Supra. They were a bit slow on that exchange. See if that cost them, because they were right on the tail of the class leader prior to the pit window opening up. See what Motorsport USA can do to respond.
Blood's now behind the wheel of the 34 car that was started from the back with James Walker jumping out. Good pit stop from them, from the Bimmer World squad. 76.5, so just half a second outside their window. And for Derek DeBoer to Spencer Pumpelly, underneath the minimum, but they do have a 1 second joker, so they are okay. So half a second underneath, so they've elected to use up that margin on day one. Don't do it again tomorrow, or you're going to be suffering a drive-through.
This pit window extends from 34 minutes, 59 seconds down until you see 25 minutes on the clocks. We're approaching halfway through, and for those who might be new to the championship, Calvin, what kind of strategies are available to these teams? There's no tire changes, so you might think, well, what strategy really is available, especially with the minimum delta, but there is quite a bit that teams can do, especially managing traffic.
It is. I mean, a lot of the teams have some software that can kind of create like a ghost car, but you're not always as certain as to what the other teams are going to do. So it's really dependent on what you're looking at that point in real time in the race. So you don't want to get buried in traffic. The obvious choice is if you have a faster driver, keep them in the car for as long as possible, or get your faster driver in as soon as possible. And there I think we saw McAleer coming in midway through this pit stop window.
That's one of the advantages to the silver lineups, because theoretically, at least, there shouldn't be much of a difference between performance of the two drivers in the lineup, and that gives you more flexibility as to when to make the pit call.
Big time. You can just look at the traffic and analyze that and make the decision based on that, not on thinking, well, if I put the other driver in early, we're going to suffer in terms of that time.
A couple other changes that have been made. Mackay Stevens, we saw him have to serve that drive-through for fueling in the pre-grid, but had been on the rebound ever since then. He's given it way to Colin Mullen. That pit stop about a second over the minimum time, so playing it a little bit safe there. Todd and Ty Clark, winners in the AM class at Road America, they've made their exchange, but they are well under the minimum, so that's not going to be good news for them. As we look at the classic BMW pit stop, Stephen McAleer handing it over to Toby Grahovic.
Yeah, it's really just about this. You got 76 seconds to work with. If you just drove through pit lane at the minimum pit lane speed, you'd lose 31 seconds. So it gives you about 45 seconds to get the driver change done, and then it should be just a smooth stopwatch and release of the car. That's all you're trying to anticipate.
I believe there are 5 cars that have not come to the pit lane yet. It might only be 4 now, with James Clay, Tim Barber, the Dexter car, and the John Miller. Well, John Miller have taken over for Chandler Hull. So I think there's just a handful that have not made their stops, if I'm reading this correctly.
McAleer to Grahovic, 76.9, so about a second outside the minimum, so they're good.
Avoiding that costly penalty.
And also, when they had such a dominant lead, you know, why use up that margin with the Joker 1 second? You might need it for tomorrow if you're in not quite such great track position.
That's a great point as well, knowing what their circumstances are. It's been a great start to this race.
Flat tire left front.
That is disappointing. This is the McAleer car that was leading the AM class, and I'm not sure if they have made their stop before. I don't think so. I think this is the stop. So in the event of a problem like this, you can change the tire. And now we'll see just how quick the Motorsport USA crew can be, assessing the situation, making that change, and how much it costs them. But this should definitely benefit Spooge Racing, help them get back to the leading class.
Yeah, it really depends how late in the lap did that left front go down, because they shouldn't lose any time on this pit stop. As I said, there's 45 seconds to work with. They can easily get that left front changed in that time. And who knows, could be an advantage if you're wearing on that left front, even to have slightly more grip for the second half of this race, which is all within the rules.
Clay, Barber, Dexter also all in the pit lane, pitting from the top 3. They had shuffled their way forward as a consequence of staying out deep into the pit window. I think we've just about seen everything cycle through. This is McAleer, make that Grahovic taking over for McAleer, coming through, and as expected, retaining the lead that Steven had built up for him in the first stint of the race.
Couple of minutes left on the board. You just have to be in pit lane. You don't have to have completed the service or be back out again. Just cross the in line on pit lane within that 10-minute window that elapses in just under 2 minutes.
I think that's the McAleer, now Dan Rogers driven car coming out ahead of these 2 BMWs. So I don't think he would have lost a ton. I think they were about in the same picture prior to the flat tire. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but this is a battle right out of the pit lane. 2 fresh drivers installed in these cars. They've got relatively hot Pirellis to work with, and immediately Nick Galante trying to hold off John Miller in the 94 car, and Miller taking a peek around the outside immediately here in the outer loop.
You can see, just gave up on him a little bit. We talked about the GLEN and how much grip it has, but offline through the carousel, or the outer loop as we call it there, just couldn't quite make it stick. He was brave enough to do it, but the car wouldn't give it to him.
2 of the Bimmer World cars racing against one another here. Behind, we see Dan Rogers drifting back a little bit, coming under attack from Ian James. Looks like Ian was poised to make that pass. We'll set the lineup as they run when things shuffle through here, as the pit window is about to close. Here is the car that entered the pit cycle in second. Now with John Capestro-Dubets driving, Christian Shimshak has taken over for Kenny Murillo, and we might have a battle on our hands brewing here between BMW and Mercedes-AMG.
Should be a good one too. So up front, Grahovic has a healthy lead. He crosses the stripe right now. This is the battle for second overall.
This Auto Technic team at Road America had 2 second-place finishes. Started on the class pole in race 1, had the fastest class lap of the race in race 2. Swap of position here between a couple of Aston Martins. That's Warren Dexter being passed, and I think Kitten Cook having taken over for Brian Putton, the B-Sport Racing car.
Yeah, and they were one of those teams that got caught out with that big qualifying session. So Brian Putton had come from very deep in the pack. Came off that brilliant victory at VIR. So they got in the win column this year and shown tremendous pace. But it is not easy to win in this class this year.
Back we go, fight for 4th. Galante against, this would be Miller, I think, unless there was a problem for Miller. He's not shown running in that position. In fact, he's shown back at 27th.
Yeah, he might be a lap down because I know that Chandler Hull was deep in the pack when he made his pit stop. So I think it's a question of trying to get that car back on the lead lap. Look at this move down the inside. That's Ian James. He's not hanging around.
No, he is not. That car is on the lead lap. Great opening stint from Gray Newell, and now Ian James trying to chase down Galante. This is for the 4th position as they enter the boot, and Ian James is flying.
Yeah, and this is for 2nd in class as well. So this is where we've seen the car really roll. It's probably got good torque coming off that corner with that Aston Martin, and maybe in the sweet spot with the gear ratio too. Sometimes you'll see one manufacturer outperform another. It can just be where the engine band is and where the torque setting is with the car and just suiting a corner better than another manufacturer.
Kenny Murillo hopped down to this family-run Mercedes-AMG GT4, turned it over to Christian Shimshak, and now is standing by to talk with Amanda.
Oh, and Ryan, have no doubt there is a monitor in front of us where Kenny's been watching to see if this battle is going to go down between that Mercedes and the BMW. And as you break down this track, where do you feel the Mercedes has the advantage at Watkins Glen?
Yeah, just driving around, it just seems like we're strong in Sector 2. We're a little weak in Sector 1 and 3, you know, to the BMW. So we're the first non-BMW, which is a really big achievement. Just really happy to be driving roller racing Mercedes-AMG, and everything's going according to plan. So really looking forward to the end of this race. Yeah.
This is now a home track for Kenny Murillo. We think of the Murillo clan, based out in California for many, many years, but Kenny's just moved up to the Monticello area, and he's doing some work at the club track there. That is the NOLA Sport entry that we were talking about earlier. Jason Alexandridis, I believe, has taken over for Dominic Starkweather.
Oh, he had a cut down left rear possibly, and then that just pitched him into the fence.
Looks like he was able to continue on, and as long as there's not debris on the line, we should be able to stay green and keep this fight going.
Wow, Galante just hesitated momentarily and nearly ran over the top of him.
Owen Trinkler relishing the chance to jump behind the wheel of this Aston Martin. Incredibly experienced driver, but don't think he's raced an Aston before. And here he comes, late on the brakes, up the inside of Galante, side by side, and somehow they come away without contact.
That was close. That took a little bit of cooperation between both drivers there in terms of Nick opening up his hands a little bit to give Owen some room, and Owen slowing down enough and using every inch of the road he had to the inside, and then takes to the inside again for this corner. Can't quite make it stick, so Galante's hanging tough here. This
is the heel of the boot, now climbing the hill to the left-hander of turn 9. Trinkler not done, gets to the apex. He is alongside, side by side at corner exit. Now the run down to the high speed, high commitment left-hander that is turn 10. And he's got the line. Galante has to relinquish the position. Owen Trinkler up another spot.
Yeah, and very respectful there. He didn't wash him out. He didn't use up all of the road coming out of the boot there, and just gave a little bit of racing room. That's what it's all about. Allows you to survive and move forward.
Galante dropped a couple of spots on that lap as Ian James made the pass earlier. That moves Ian up to 4th. He now runs 2nd in Pro-Am. Trinkler is 3rd in Pro-Am. James is his quarry. You can see him just up the road. Meanwhile, Grahovic leads overall in silver class as well. Then the Pro-Am leader runs 2nd with John Capestre-Dubets. Christian Shimshak 2nd in silver, 3rd in the overall running order. Ian James 2nd in Pro-Am, Trinkler 3rd in Pro-Am, 4th and 5th.
Here's this battle, not going anywhere for 2nd on the road. Oh, Capestre-Dubets slowed suddenly there, didn't roll any speed. There's an issue. There's that piece of debris that came off the Dexter Racing Aston Martin very early in this race. Still sits on the side of the road, so maybe Capestre-Dubets just doesn't want to be part of this battle and just lets him go and focuses on maintaining that class lead right now.
Let's hope that's the case and there's nothing more sinister going on. This is also the part of the track that Kenny said the Mercedes should thrive in relative to the BMW. So now it's incumbent upon Christian, assuming all is right with the Beamer behind him, to build enough of a gap that he can hold on when they get into Sector 1, where the BMW should have an edge.
Yeah, Kenny was talking about the fact that the BMWs, they work on different levels of power sticks. There's the electronic kind of monitoring system for how much power you're going to get on particular weekends. And the BMW have downgraded a bit since the power that they had at Road America, but also lost some weight in the race car. So one works with the other in terms of what it will achieve on the lap time overall. So Kenny thought that the BMW would still be strong here, and it certainly is.
Inside the final 20 minutes, can JCD come back? The answer for now is no. Stays single file through turn 1. Shimshak up to second overall, but he has nearly 9 seconds to claw back before he can even think about fighting Grahovic for the lead.
Yeah, I think JCD is, I think he's just sitting there. I think the team has said, listen, you got a really healthy lead right now. It's about 13 seconds over Ian James for the class lead. So let's not get into a battle that we can't win. But having said that, he's not demonstrating that philosophy right now.
No, he is not. Takes a peek around as Shimshak rather has to go defensive. Able to fend him off for the moment, and we'll see. This part here is where Shimshak was able to make the move coming up into this next corner and seemed to have a bit of an edge in the Mercedes over the BMW, and if that can hold true, that might be the buffer he needs.
Yeah, it looked really easy, didn't it,
It
for
did.
Pirelli to get by him? Like John was just saying, okay, take the position. I don't want to fight you. So maybe there was just a hesitation there with the BMW, or he had a little moment that we didn't quite identify on the screen there, but he seems to be racy again.
These are the corner speeds at the bus stop, also known as the inner loop here at Watkins Glen. Shimshak fastest on our Race Vision powered by AWS, 94 miles per hour through that quick switchback. That's where you were talking about it earlier. Maybe in years past you think of that as a big-time braking zone, passing opportunity, but even in these GT4 cars, they make enough downforce. They can flow a lot of speed through that section, and it's changed the dynamic of that corner.
It certainly has. A battle here for position in the Pro-Am class is Kenton Cook looking to find his way around Gregory Leofouge. We talk about that 119 Stephen Cameron Racing BMW, the potential to close in on that 63-point lead that Matt Travis and Jason Hart have coming into this race with them not competing. This is not the result they were looking for. Been a regular podium finisher this year. Right now they run in 6th position and struggling to hang on to that.
Watch the fight. One story to update you on. It's been a great day for Ian James and Gray Newell and the Heart of Racing team. They run 4th overall, 2nd in class, but I saw a message from Race Control a moment ago that says their pit stop will be reviewed after the race. So that sort of Damocles now hangs suspended over that Aston Martin team, and we'll await resolution.
So I think we said they were just a little bit over the minimum. It wasn't like they were utilizing the Joker time or anything that has to be monitored. So they must have seen something they weren't quite happy with. That team runs in different championships, so again, the rules are slightly different. Very easy to get caught out being in a routine that you're unfamiliar with. I'm not saying that's the case. I know there's a lot of different crew available to them with that operation now. And
it could well be that they end up absolved of any wrongdoing. He just said that it would be reviewed. So we shall see, but that is a bit of unfortunate news just to enter any doubt into the equation about the way that car has been running and what the result might ultimately be, because on the racetrack right now, this probably is the best weekend we've seen out of them thus far. How about this? Swap a position back. How not waiting around, not being conservative at all. John Capestre-Dubets back around to the inside in the inner loop.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. I'm really surprised with just over 15 minutes to go that he really wants to try and extend this lead in class that he has over Ian James that is maintained around the 13, 14 second mark. So it's a healthy buffer, but he's got his arms out again. So it must have just been a little hesitation, because it was dramatic, the speed difference between Shimshak and Capestre-Dubets about 3 laps ago when there was a move made.
At the front of this field here, this is Aaron Povolato on debut, this brand new team, 3R Povolato Racing. First race in this Aston Martin, and what a ride Aaron and Ross West have given it. They run 7th overall, 5th in Pro-Am. Really remarkable what they've been able to do.
Yeah, I think he just moved up one spot on that lap, so now he's up to 4th, and the next target is a podium, but he's 6 seconds back at Owen Trinkler right now, so we'll have to monitor that lap time, see if he's got anything in hand to try and close that gap, and then obviously the clock is going to be the factor, how much time is left on the board to do it.
Kevin Cook right now seeking a way past Nick Galante as well. 3rd place in Pro-Am points. Kitten Cook and Brian Putt entering this weekend. Had a 1 podium in the 2nd race of the weekend at Elkhart Lake, but crucially for them, that first overall win, first class win also in the team's history back in race 2 at VIR. And Kenton and Brian in particular are really riding the wave of momentum stemming from that race. And here comes Kenton Cook now, team manager and driver. He wears a couple of different hats. There's a quick switch to the inside, tries to get in here in the laces side by side through a difficult part of this racetrack.
That is really well crafted there. I thought he's going to be pushed out wide on the entry there through the laces of the boot, and it's taken him 3 corners, but finally it looks like he's alongside, but Galante's not giving it up. Been in a lot of hectic battles here today. Nick Galante trying to hang on track position.
Kenton Cook, the 27-year-old from California, former class winner at the 24 Hours of Daytona. It's been a bit of a difficult couple of years for him, trying to find consistent opportunities. And last year, with this B Sport Racing team coming online, Kenton taking an active role in management as well as driving, showing just how good he is on a consistent basis. That move there moves him into 5th in class.
I tell you what, I'm not sure if Nick Galante missed his braking point a little bit or whether he just got that ability on the brakes, but he got in so deep there. I thought he was going to touch Kenton as they turned in to turn 8 there, the heel of the boot.
See what Galante can do. He's been playing defense basically this entire stint. 13 minutes left to go, and here comes Greg Leafouche. It's been more of a quiet run from him than I would have anticipated. He tends to be a fireworks show every time he gets in the race car. Can't keep our eyes or our cameras off of him. And it's been an okay run, currently 7th in Pro-Am, 9th overall, but this is their chance with their championship rivals not participating here today. They need to maximize this day when they know that NOLA Sport won't score points.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a degree of anxiety in that car. Oh, Galante goes straight. And if you miss the inner loop here, they got those kind of tire bundles in the way, and you don't have to do a complete stop. You can just continue as long as you didn't gain any track position there. So just forced to the inside there, Nick Galante. I wonder, you know, he's been missing his, I saw him come into turn 8 there and get really deep on the brakes. I wonder if his brakes are going away a little bit. But he's been in one of those awkward races, as I call it. As you said, he's been very much on the defense. And when you jump in a car, hard to find your rhythm when you're always driving in the rearview mirror and trying to defend your position.
Couldn't defend that one ultimately. Leafouche found the way by. That then moves Leafouche to 6th in the Pro-Am class order, 8th overall, but really the Pro-Am results are what they care about. That's what pays the points towards their championship. And they enter with a pretty big hill to climb, but they've done it before, chasing the same team. And I know Jason and Matt are tired of us talking about it, but 2 years ago, they came out of the gates like gangbusters and won a bunch of races, built this huge lead, and it was Quinlan and Leafouche that chipped away at it and ultimately won out in the championship finale in Las Vegas.
Yep, they've suffered that fate a couple of years now, so they want to go one better. And as you said, they're probably tired of us talking about it, but they'll be happy. Watching on here, Jason Hart is on site. Obviously, he did a qualifying session for race 2 tomorrow, so he'll be happy looking at where that 119 car is running and the amount of damage that they'll receive today in terms of their points gap.
We saw a moment ago the Smooge Racing Supra, John Jesbray. That's your AM class leader. That was the car that Kevin Conway started. But we go to the front of the field where Toby Grohovic's once comfortable lead has shrunk dramatically, 4.4 seconds. And maybe that's why JCD wanted so desperately to get around the Murillo car, because he knew the pace in his BMW was good enough to threaten Grohovic. The last few laps, he's taken chunks to the tune of 1 second per lap out of the lead. Looking at the time remaining, and and I think there's a chance if he can keep that pace up, he might get there.
He's going to be right on in about second lap. There should be about 5 laps to go, so he's certainly got enough time to get there. Wonder how much Toby is managing this, and we also spoke about McAleer was really pushing really hard to establish that gap. So did he take too much out of the tires, or is Toby just not quite as comfortable in the car right now at this later stage of the race? But he can see them coming. Pressure is on. He's got to maintain that pace, try and keep the pressure off.
Amanda is in the classic BMW pits. What are you hearing?
I think you guys are hitting it right on the head there. I was talking to Steven, and he was saying that that Toby is struggling on the tires. He feels that the other cars are better than the BMW on keeping these Pirellis with grip later in the race. Looking at the times in front of us, Steven does feel that they are going to get caught, but they're going to have to rely on Toby's ability to defend here to get a trophy.
Well, Toby's got the experience. He's not going to find a situation he hasn't encountered at least once or twice at some point in his career. So they've got that going for them. And we talked about it some last season. It seemed like he took another step in his willingness to get aggressive when the time comes, racing for a touring car title last year, and that might be required before it's all said and done today.
Certainly the way it's going right now is going to be required, because they're cutting in that lead at a rate that will get to Toby with a lap or 2 to go. So he's got to respond, and then if they do catch him, he's got to get his elbows out. But as an ex-hockey player, you would think that he'd have the ability to do that.
Yeah, that's right. He was a 2-time NAIA All-American hockey player at Robert Morris College in Chicago, where he's from, and he set the school record of 100 goals over the course of a career. That record still stands. In fact, his number was retired. It hangs in the rafters in their hockey venue. So, yeah, racing has come very naturally to Toby Grohovic, but he had an athletic career that was exemplary long before he got aboard a race car.
It's a great story, great stat. Didn't realize he was that accomplished. So good stuff here, and he's certainly getting the job done behind a wheel as well, but he's got to dig deep now as he tries to hang on to that lead. Seeing a good run here for Colin Mullen once again. That Conquest Racing team coming back from that drive-through penalty, so this is really impressive now, running 4th in class.
It makes you wonder what might have been. They had a good start. We're running, I think, just inside the top 10 when they had to serve the penalty, and he right now is pressuring Spencer Pumpelly, which is not an easy thing to do. That's the TRG Porsche. He's got the big old silver Mercedes AMG looming right behind. That's this brand new team, Conquest Racing West. John Farrow, Canadian businessman and motorsports enthusiast who has the wherewithal to help fund up-and-coming young drivers, ran effectively a gong show, tried out a couple, and Colin Mullen and Mackay Stevens, who started this car, were 2 that were selected from that. We know that Mackay will be in the car the rest of the year. Colin is running a prototype for this same operation in a different series, and he's got those commitments the rest of the year. Plus, he's going to college at Ohio State University. Drove 6.5 hours to be here after wrapping up a physics lab on Thursday. Now strapped into this race car, and I suspect driving a little bit quicker than he did on the commute to the racetrack.
Yeah, it's easy to get a ticket in this region of the country, that's for sure. So, really impressive run, really impressive team led by Eric Bachelard, long-time IndyCar entrant and excellent driver himself.
Yes.
Over the years, many accomplishments for the Belgian man. So it's pretty impressive. I mean, and it just shows you that, you know, you pick the right horse and you get the right riders, you can make things happen in a hurry in this championship.
Let's also take this chance to commend what Warren Dexter is doing right ahead of Spencer Pumpelly. He's holding off Spencer at the moment in a car that we know is damaged. We saw it run wide over the curbing and rip off part of the diffuser. And he's done a great job keeping the veteran behind him. That is for 11th, 12th, and 13th overall.
There'll be 3 laps to go here at the conclusion of this one. And certainly that gap is coming down, but Toby's hanging tough. Until they get right there, it allows you to just focus on hitting your marks and trying to execute your lap time the best you can, as McAleer looks concerned there sitting on the pit box.
Alex Perry, the crew chief, to the right of that shot, looking on with somewhat less consternation. I'm sure he's communicating with Toby. There's the live gap on the screen. Let's see If Grahovic can keep that gap, it's down under 2 seconds now. JCD is closing quickly.
Yeah, but only 4/10 on that lap, so if it maintains that rate or that delta, that may be just enough for Toby to hang on, but he can't afford to lose any more than that. If he starts losing 7, 8/10 a lap, it's going to be really tight.
Well, we heard the report from Amanda. Steven felt like maybe the BMW wasn't as easy on the tires around here as some of the other makes, and you wonder how hard is JCD pushing his tires in this bid to try and catch Toby. Would that take some of the life away? And can Toby then conserve a little bit out in front and maybe have that in reserve when battle is joined?
Yeah, big question marks there, and obviously different classes. So how much will JCD put it on the line if he does catch Toby? To BMW, you'd hate to take away 2 class victories for the manufacturer with one rash move. So he's got some work to do here. It looks like Toby has kind of stabilized that delta that we were seeing in terms of the lap times between these chasers and himself.
And the wild card in the mix is the Mercedes that hasn't gone anywhere. We've spent all this time talking about the top 2, but Christian Shimshak is right there within striking distance, and he pulled the surprise move around the outside, out of the chute into the laces of the boot about 10 minutes ago, and was able to grab second temporarily. And he has every motivation, unlike the top 2 who are not in the same classes. Shimshak, if he can get around JCD, all of a sudden then he could fight for the class lead as well as the overall lead.
Yeah, I think right now he should probably just sit there for another lap and let that gap to the leader, you know, basically get a raise. So then that would give them the opportunity to go for both of them. But if he starts fighting, JCD is going to inhibit their ability to get to that leader anyway.
Now, the great part of this series, everywhere you look, you can find a battle. This is outside of the top 10, but Andrew Davis chasing down Colin Mullen, chasing down Warren Dexter, who just got passed by this Porsche, Spencer Pumpelly for TRG, out in front of this group and trying to run down Galante for 10th. So this is 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and Elliott Skier just in the back of the picture. He runs 15th overall, several different classes, all mixed together, giving no quarter.
Yeah, and I think Skier's car may have had an issue. You saw Adelson dropping there earlier in the race, so maybe he just overheated something, and they've had a chance to regroup. But very impressive performance by he and his teammate once again here today. As we look at the leader up front, there is the gap. It is really narrowing. About a lap and a half to go here in terms of the checkered flag.
And it's interesting that John Capestro Dubets has left Shimshak behind a little bit. Those two had been tethered together, figuratively, for the bulk of the last 10 minutes, but he's able to extend that advantage now. And what that does is, if he can maintain it at least, you don't have to be thinking at all about defense. You can just go on the attack and try and find a way past the BMW out in front. The longer Shimshak stays in the picture, the more difficult it becomes to have that kind of confidence that an aggressive move wouldn't open up the door for you to lose a position.
Yeah, I can't even try to begin to understand what JCD's philosophy is here today, because I've got it wrong already. So I'll just let it evolve and let it play out in terms of he has the class lead, he has a victory in his hand right now. Does he want that overall win bad enough to risk throwing it away?
And it will come down to the final lap as they come out of turn 10 here with less than 2 minutes remaining. They're running lap times around 1:56, so this should be the white flag.
He gets a run, gets a big run there. Grahovic has to go on the defense down the front stretch into turn 1. That's going to compromise his speed and entry point into turn 1. And JCD is going to try and set this up, gets a little bit close, going to roll speed here through Apex, try and get the run up through the S's. Here we go.
Tom Hansing waved the white flag ahead of this battle. Here comes John Capestro Dubets. Door shut in his face as they climb up the hill through the S's. That brings Shimshak into the fight. 1, 2, and 3. Final lap at Watkins Glen.
Does that Mercedes have enough grunt here? He's getting a big draft here, punching the hole by those 2 BMWs. Grahovic goes defensive early. Can he roll speed here? What can JCD do with it through here, through the inner loop? Can he make a brave move down into the boot?
Toby Grahovic racing for classic BMW. It's the Auto Technic BMW of John Capestro Dubets to the outside in the outer loop. He'll have the inside here through the laces. Shimshak waiting in the wings.
Beautiful. Just timed that beautifully. Well crafted. rolled the speed through the inner loop, got to the flank of the classic BMW, and has made it stick by the time they got to the brake zone.
That's not a change in class position, however, so this now becomes the fight for the Pro-Am lead. Grahovic and Shimshak, BMW versus Mercedes, halfway around the final tour of Watkins Glen, headed towards the heel.
Yeah, and this is another question mark in terms of the big picture. Championship leader here, Shimshak. Does he want the victory bad enough to throw all the way for someone who's not really in the championship picture right now in terms of Grahovic and McAleer?
John Capestro-Dubets made his bid for the lead and made it work around the outside. He's jetting away. Grahovic loose on corner exit in turn 9. That brings Shimshak right up to the rear wing of that BMW.
Yeah, Grahovic trying to hang on here with his tires in the late going.
One more time through turn 11, then the drag race to the checkered flag. Shimshak setting him up, but John Capestro-Dubets, Tom Capizzi, they take overall victory at Watkins Glen. Drag race for the Pro-Am win, and it goes to Grahovic by 84 thousandths of a second.
What a battle. That was fascinating. Just to look at the different approaches and the overlapping classes, great stuff. Never disappoints here.
Absolutely amazing. Battle for the lead there at the end. We drop back further. This is Dexter Racing versus GMG. Warren Dexter versus Andrew Davis. Further back in the field for 13th overall, not for class position. Field streaming across the line to take the checkered flag. One note to make, got a race control report. Driver of car 50 report to race control post-race. That would be Aaron Povoledo, who brought that new team home with a 5th place finish and a podium result in Pro-Am. Not sure what the race control message is all about, but as it stands, a remarkable result for them on debut.
It really is, and he had a bunch of ground to make up on Trinkler there. I think it was about 3 or 4 seconds when he did move into 4th position, so somehow he made that stick in the final moments of this race.
That is the car right there. Brand new team with some help from Dexter Racing. And also the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race. So, Aaron.
Maybe that's why he's got to report to the stewards. Like, where did you find that lap time?
Good day for Aston in a lot of respects. You see Ian James. That's also a car, though, that has to go through some kind of post-race scrutiny here because they had a pit stop that needs to be reviewed. But Ian James, 2nd place in Pro-Am for Ian and Gray Newell. I think their previous best finish this season was 7th. And that's a 2nd place class finish and 4th overall. So great run for Heart of Racing here today.
Well, with that in mind, Trinkler and Cook shouldn't go too far because there's 2 of the podium finishes right now.
Yeah.
Have got to report to the stewards room.
Interesting stuff. So very provisional, but these are the results as they stand. What a move it was. John Capestro-Dubets. Maybe not a name that we should be more familiar with his name, I think, given his abilities, and we saw them on full display with that high commitment move. It goes to show what an overall win means. It doesn't pay any extra points, but he put it all on the line.
He did, and watching him compete against one of the best like Bill Oberlin at Road America, that's great to have that benchmark there. Someone like an Oberlin, where guys like the Matt Travises and the Jason Harts and the Gregory Leofouge and the JCDs can compete and say, this is for real. I'm not just winning a class here today, I'm competing against the very best.
There's a couple of those in this field. You throw Spencer Pumpelly's name into that. Kyle Marcelli probably deserves consideration as one of those drivers you can benchmark yourself off of. Andrew Davis as well. And they're sprinkled all throughout this field. It goes to show just how good the talent is. Some of it's young and up and coming. Some of it has just been waiting around for a chance. Christian Shimshak, another one. A lot of experience, maybe not in a lot of high-profile situations, but he's been a revelation over the last 3 seasons.
He really has. Lots of smiles down there. That was a great day for that team, Auto Technique. They really made this move to GT4 and doing it very well.
Yeah, a long-time Touring Car America team making that step in recent years, and right now looking like they're capable of carrying the torch for BMW. That's exactly what they did this weekend up against the likes of Bimmer World and Classic BMW that have been doing this for a very long time. I imagine it's going to be a great interview. John Capestro-Dubets, Tom Capizzi, they take victory overall. They're standing by with Amanda.
Well, I don't think Tom has stopped smiling or shaking since he got over here, guys. Not only is this a big win right here at Watkins Glen, it's a big one for Tom because it's his first professional win ever. And when you look back on this moment, Tom, what will come to mind?
It took 2 years to get here. I have an amazing team, Auto Technic. We're literally 2 years to work on getting this day right now, this moment. And John, JCD, my coach, my co-driver, the whole thing is epic. I couldn't be more happy. I'd say I'm speechless, but I'm not. I'll keep going if you keep the film going.
John, you came into pit lane holding the #1. How fun was that last lap for you as you guys all got battled together?
Oh man, that's a dream come true. That's what every racer dreams about, right? Last lap, make it happen, and really hats off to Toby for giving us the room to get that pass done. And yeah, I mean, tough competition here, so it's an honor to be at the top step.
Congratulations, a memorable one nonetheless.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for everything.
Now, John brings up a great point. It takes two to tango, and Toby was as clean as can be, put up a great fight, but had the respect, and we all were rewarded for it with a great show.
Yeah, he was just running out of tires there. You could see it through the last couple of corners, even once he lost that overall lead there, just really struggling to keep the car underneath him. And as you mentioned, a real drag race to the line between he and Shimshak, but he just held on for that class win, so he'll be happy. Great result for that group.
Yeah,
Second win on the year.
It was a dramatic last lap for Toby Grahovic. Let's hear about it. Down with Amanda.
Well, as you talk about the dramatics of that last lap, no one knows that more than Toby Grahovic. We saw you sliding around there at the end. You had another win this season as well. How difficulty would you rate on this win?
Yeah, this one was flat out every lap, just trying to keep it together and keep it in the front. Stephen McAleer did an awesome job on the start, going from third to first, going into turn 1. It was awesome. I got to thank Classic BMW, Eric Moss, Moss family, John Cobell, for putting us in this car and letting us run this season. It's awesome, and we get to bring home a win. I got to thank Alex Perry and Robert Lee, Justin Clark, and Nick for helping us out, and Scott taking care of the tires. These guys are awesome. They give us an awesome car, and we're able to bring it home first. So.
I guess those defensive skills of being a hockey player worked out for you, huh?
Oh, for sure. I had my elbows up for sure, not to make it easy for them to get around.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great stuff from Toby Grahovic. 84 thousandths of a second, the difference between first and second in the silver class. You wonder what might have been if they had run this car, this pairing at Sonoma. They debuted at COTA. It was supposed to be a one-off. They finished third and second in those two races, went on to get a second and a win at VIR. Elkhart Lake was not great for them, but nevertheless, fourth in points coming in silver, despite missing 2 races. And they got another win here. Let's go back down to Victory Lane.
Well, we're talking to the super team that has won at every single track here this season. 5 wins for this team collectively. And John, when you look at the performance today, what will you use from this race that you'll forward to tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow is going to be a tougher race. We start a little bit further back due to just not getting a clean lap in during qualifying. So figuring out how the car really likes to be driven around this track towards the end of the race was really, really helpful, and I think it's going to help us at the start tomorrow.
When you look at this kid, what joy does it bring to you to see his success?
It's amazing to see what this kid's been able to do, and this is one of the only tracks that we didn't test at before the race. So his first laps here ever were yesterday in practice, and to be able to continually just crank out great lap times and make consistent laps and make good decisions on the racetrack his first time here is a testament to his talent, and this whole team has just done an amazing job. We're very thankful for Toyota and Smooth Racing and Ave Motorsports, everybody that helps this program along and makes it happen.
Kevin, John, congratulations.
Thank you.
5 wins on the season now in the AM class. They have a stranglehold on the points lead. Kevin Conway brings a lot of experience from stock car racing, sports car racing to the table, but John Jesbray's got an older head on his shoulders than you'd expect for an 18-year-old as we look back at the highlights.
Yeah, he certainly demonstrated that in his driving and also his attitude in terms of I learned a lot today that I'll take and move forward with tomorrow.
Here was the start to the race. Stephen McAleer able to jump to the front after starting in the second row. He sprinted out to a huge lead. The overall pole sitter was Chris Wilson, but they did not go his way despite this great duel at the front early.
Yeah, and then we saw a battle here, and Tom Capizzi, JCD's teammate there, just certainly used a lot of patience, and that put them in a strong position at the end. Here's an off Dexter Racing Aston Martin there through the laces of the boot, but they were cut for a nice drive.
Ryan Dexter with that wild ride came home 13th, did that car. Side by side a little bit further back, there were battles all throughout this field. This, though, was the huge move that put John Capestro-Dubets back in front of Christian Shimshak. He then went to try and run down Toby Grahovic as the battles continued further back in the field. This was Kenton Cook going around the outside of Nick Galante with Greg Leofouge looking on, but this was the moment of the race.
Yeah, just timed it beautifully. Toby is struggling for grip there with the tires, and JCD just a bold move around the outside, gives him that inside lane, and then he just took off to the checkered flag.
Wild race one at Watkins Glen. John Capestro-Dubets and Tom Capizzi win overall, and we'll do it again tomorrow.